Hi, I'm Mary Gostelow, and I'm absolutely honoured and thrilled today to be welcoming many friends of Martin Gostelow from all over the world who've come to celebrate his life.
11, grown-ups don't really take you seriously, and so it felt really special to have that attention from Martin, and I know my sisters feel the same way, that he can just make you feel like the most important person in the world, and I'll never forget that. No.
Well, you were the most important because you are too humble to say, you three, but there was the time when Martin couldn't park, and you, Tariq, apparently said, "Oh, park here, it's all right. I'll make sure that it's all right." You were definitely the most important person. Thank you. So thank you to the New York school system, to the Washington, D.C. university system, and to Apple for allowing these three people to come over for the weekend. It's been very special. And then we move on to somebody who Martin only got to know properly about 4 years ago, and who became very special very quickly in his life, Yuri Horovy.
I was very lucky to know Martin for about 4 years, and as Mary mentioned when we just walked in, I'm Ukrainian who spent half of my life here, and Martin was an inspiration for me because, as they say, to travel is to live. So I always wanted to travel the world and to meet people around the world, to understand life. And Martin was fortunate to travel the world the best way. And if you can envision Martin traveling Eastern Europe in his convertible car, I've never heard it before. For me, it was like the biggest inspiration. That's something I saw like in all Soviet movies. People couldn't dream about it really back then. But we all talk about Martin today, and Martin did that because he carried his love to Mary all his life and supported Mary. You supported each other and inspired each other. So for me, Martin was an inspiration and another proof that whatever I chose to do in my life, to travel the world and share my experience with people, I run a travel company, so I'm halfway. And thanks to Martin, let's celebrate his life today. And thank you, Mary. I'm so fortunate to know you, and I was lucky to know Martin as well. Thank you.
It has been an absolute pleasure and an honour to be down here at the event today in the wonderful grounds of Cliff House. We were very pleased to be invited. My speech today I was very honoured to be asked to speak to portray some of the feelings I had about Martin. Of course, you can't capture it all in 1 minute and 45 seconds, but the love and warmth we had for you. We're always going to remember the humour, the love you had for the family. Not just your physical presence, but your intelligence was a big inspiration to us all. So thank you very much indeed for having us today, Mary, for setting this up. It's been really enjoyable. Hearing some lovely stories and getting to see the broader family as well. So happy birthday, but also thank you for the wonderful day to remember such a great man.
Thank you, Martin. Cheers.
Thank you, Mary.
I consider one of my life's better fortunes to have met Mary through work and to have met Martin through Mary. One of my fondest memories of Martin is how he was always behind Mary when I first started my video calls with her, and I just loved that they shared this desks together, they shared their learning together, and I always saw him behind her, and I consider it really a privilege to have known Martin through Mary, and I consider it another privilege to know Mary. And I love you, Mary, and to Martin, thank you for inviting me.
Hi, Mary. As you know, I've traveled 9.5 hours to come to be here. This is so well worth it. I just got to know Martin and you so much better. It was just a very emotional moment for me. And again, glad to be here.
Hi, I'm Andy from Timber Lodge, just across the way. I lived next door to Martin and Mary for the last 32 years. When we first arrived here, they made us really welcome. We've had 3 girls, and Martin over the last 20 years has made the girls, have been really shown real interest in the girls and what they've done and where they've been. And we're really grateful to have known him, appreciate his style and also his management qualities around the area. Thank you very much.
I'm Martin Gostelow, and I am so privileged to have 3 gorgeous sisters.
Hello, I'm Diana, and I am sister-in-law of beloved Martin.
And I'm Hilly Cobham, one of the 4 daughters of Sir James Cobham, and I'm very, very happy that I'm number 3 in the family of 4.
And my name is Helena Cobham. I'm the youngest, and I'm honoured and privileged to have these 3 wonderful older sisters, and to be here for Martin's memorial gathering, which has been a really wonderful gathering. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Hooray! Thank you, Martin!
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin! Martin!
Excellent.
Hi Mary, that was an absolutely fantastic event and a great way to celebrate Martin's life. I have a couple of memories that I have. One is he came to one of our children's parties at Cliff House, and I remember vividly him lying down on the grass and allowing a tarantula to crawl across his face, and he was engaged completely with the kids and the animals. It was super. The other one was when talking to him in the later times about his travel. He was always so humble, but his spirit of adventure was amazing. And also his memory, I remember he reeled off to me the names of 12 children in his class at the American school. And he said it was his favourite class, and he reeled them all off, the surnames, the first names, and clearly his passion for life and his passion for adventure was amazing. And I can't think of a better way of having celebrated his life than the event that you arranged today with your formidable sisters. Thank you very much. I feel privileged to have known Martin and very grateful that I know you and your family.
Well, I'd just like to say cheers, Martin, and it was a pleasure to know you. You were such an amazing guy. I never knew how much you actually did, and
I was amazed. Yeah.
you always made me feel special. Not that I was doing a special job, but every time I came in, you really did, and you were very interested in everything we were talking about, especially the granddaughter latterly. You loved watching her. But I just think you and Mary were an amazing couple, and I take my hat off to her because I don't think I could cope without my beloved like she's coping. But just thank you for letting us know you.
Absolutely.
And cheers.
Okay. Hi Mary, it's Sandra, as you know, representing the Crouch side of the family. Everyone sends their love. Dave sent you information and a story. Marge is sending her love, lots of love. She reminded me this morning to pass it on to you. And I'm just going to think of one little period with you and Martin, and that was when you lived at Milton Abbas, and I came down and you showed me your collection of frogs, and Martin was there, and it was so powerful, and Martin was so pleased that we all, with Marge and Joe, had such a lovely time, and he'll always be in my memory, Mary, and all my thoughts are with you as well. Thank you.
Hi Mary, thank you for such a lovely day celebrating Martin's life. I'm so pleased I was able to provide the colour reference for the car and the silver shoes as requested. Thank you so much for being friends of ours. It has been an absolute privilege.
So I'm just going to give you the last paragraph of my speech. Speech? What do you call it? Speech? The words that I have to say about Martin. So, on my last visit to Martin, I found him lying peacefully in his bed. My dog came with you. Every other time Otto had greeted Martin with a very waggy tail and looked eagerly to Martin for a head rub. On that final time, Otto sat perfectly still, respectfully paying homage to this great man.
Mary, thank you for this celebration. That's the way this garden should always have been used. The reason for it, of course, was less than totally happy, but thanks for giving all these friends the chance to talk about Martin, because he was so close to so many people's hearts. And the stories that we've heard here filled me in on who he had been before I met him, which was relatively recent. 20 years ago today, I think, or this year anyway. I remember being here when your friend with the helicopter landed Peter on the lawn. And that's when I took the photograph of Martin and stuck on the board. But in general, I think you two were the reason I knew that I was in the right house when I bought it. And you're continuing to be the reason why we stay here, Mary.
Thank you so much for coming.
And I hope we'll see lots more of you, and lots of love and thanks for having us.
Martin. He became the brain of Britain. I heard he won it twice. Considering all his brain contained, he wore it lightly. Nice. Not just facts, but figures too. He kept our books in balance. Teacher, traveler, bibliophile. The man had many talents. We'd share our news, alternate views, to plumb his deep discerning, to pique the curiosity that fed his love of learning. He could get rather gimlet-eyed if something seemed askew. You'd be relieved if, after all, the culprit wasn't you. We'd share our funny stories just to catch him by surprise, then wait to see amusement play about his mouth and eyes. Presenting him with comic proof the world could not be dafter. Then wait, he'd tip his head back, open-mouthed, and quake with quiet laughter. Were I to list each thing we'll miss, it might take quite a while. Suffice to say that here today, I'm missing Martin's smile. Thanks for doing this today. It was a big, big, important day for everyone here.
So I'm Helena Carbon. I'm Martin's youngest sister-in-law. Mary is my older sister, and I have always loved Martin so much. Since the first moment I saw him, he was this very handsome guy who'd come and married my oldest sister, and he was just a wonderful presence in our family and for my children. And at the end of his life, I did have the wonderful chance to have a Zoom call with Martin and tell him everything that he had meant to me through my life. And his hearing was still very acute, so he apparently heard everything that I said, and I just know that Martin would love to have been here for this party today.
Hi, I'm Hilly. I'm one of Mary's sisters. We are really, really lucky to be here today to celebrate the life of Martin. Martin's been very much a part of my life. He was very instrumental in me meeting my current husband and has been hugely supportive the whole time. He was a lot of fun to be with. He was quiet, but by golly, he took everything in. And he caused us so much joy, and it helped keep the family together, particularly after my father died, because Martin then took on the role of head of the family and was executor for all his affairs and took it all on board very seriously. He was a great man, and we're going to miss him really badly. We've been happy to be here today.
Adele, neighbour, Paul, ex-neighbour, lived above in the flat above for 10 years, Martin and Mary beneath me, and I behaved myself quite well. I didn't get told off too often, And if I ever needed any sane advice, it would be down to speak to Martin. And when we had a pub quiz, we made sure he was on our team.
Very wise.
He was the cement of our group, the management committee, to keep it running. And sadly, he couldn't do so much towards the end. Adele took over very well. One additional thing, I have a little airplane, and Martin used to be in the Air Force, so I invited him to come flying with me. When he saw the aircraft, he decided, I won't actually go up to you, Paul, but I'll look at it. And that was about it.
Yeah, Martin, everybody has said how kind he was, and he was a really kind man, and he was somebody who he was smart, he did know so many things, but actually he never made you feel stupid. And that really is something that is the sign of just a really generous personality, that he was like that. So I'm so glad that Martin was here when we moved in, and for the whole time we were there, he was always somebody you could go to, ask. He knew so much about Cliff, and we were always grateful for that. And I think one thing is very clear, he loved Mary very, very much, and they made such a great couple. They were always, one said something, the other would bring up something else. They were just so good together, and I'm really glad that we got to meet Martin.
They were Cliff House.
They were.
Yeah.
Mary, I have so many wonderful memories of coming to visit you here at your beautiful house, to visit you and Martin, and the smiles and the laughs we've shared over the years, your unexpected drop-ins wherever we were in the world, whether it was in DC or in San Francisco, have always been a source of joy to me. So many well wishes. Love you, Mary.
Well, we know Martin would always be there for us, and
That's true. He was a lovely man, very kind, and gave wonderful advice about travel destinations, what we should do with plans in life, and he was always kind, thoughtful, and very perceptive about people.
And we all truly do love him.
Ted and I just want to say that we'll always be your friends. We will never forget Martin or you. Thank you for a lovely day.
Mary, thank you very much for everything. It's been such a great time knowing you and Martin, and it's been a great pleasure. Thank you very much for everything. And Martin, thank you.
We love you both.
And thank you all. I'd like to thank all my marvellous Cliff neighbours. You're all so special. I could not have survived since the 18th of March without you all. And that includes not only Cliff, but people from Tinkleton too. So thank you all, close friends and neighbours, so much. And our nearest neighbour, literally, if we go vertically from our house in Cliff, is immediately above us. We have two theatricals, and we've got to finish off on a theatrical note. So, known for such little delights as, my goodness, what do I say?
Don't worry.
Succession and a few others, are known for being Mr. Scrooge and a few other things. Harriet Walter and Guy Paul, the floor is yours to finish.
My strict 2 minutes. Actually, having only really known Martin in his semi-retirement and only having ever met him here, it's wonderful to hear about his adventures and the lead up to his final years. He was too modest to tell us half of it. Looking out at the ocean of green from our first floor, and even more so from the top floor, Cliff House has always reminded me of a ship. And Martin was always its anchor. When others of us took off like seagulls from the masts, he was always there. There was something of the keeper of the keys about him. He knew all the quirks and the history of the building. On my first visit, peeking through the windows, I was intrigued and comforted to see bookshelves and a scholarly aura radiating from the Gostelow flat. If you were putting Martin in a children's book, which is quite a tempting idea, he'd be the mysterious janitor who seemed headmasterly, but then turned out to be on the side of the adventurous kids. Besides being bookish and somewhat pedagogic, he often corrected my minutes as secretary of our Cliff House company meeting. Martin was a very active man, until fairly recently playing tennis and cycling with Mary. He was widely travelled and widely read, and Guy and he used to swap book recommendations in the days when Martin could only travel in his mind. What will I remember? His example of remaining mentally engaged and interested, courageous and patient in the face of his decline. I will remember his and Mary's kindness when I lost my partner, Peter. And I remember his gentle voice, his sense of humour, and his broad, delighted smile. I don't believe in ghosts, but I can stretch to believing in a benign presence of Martin hovering over this place, over the bits of the garden he regularly tended, beaming out love to Mary, and perhaps having a hand in shortening the length and frequency of any local power cuts. Such an unexpected man, and Mary, such an unexpected spouse for him. First time I saw her, she was wearing that pink miniskirt. And yet such a brilliant, long-lasting match. We called them M&M, which is the US equivalent of treats. Colourful, and I'm sorry, Mary, fundamentally sweet. Thank you, Martin, for being the good spirit of the building, the anchor of the ship, and thank you, Mary, for making him so happy and so proud.
Martin.
Do you know what, guys? I think I know Martin a little bit more, and I hope you do too. And I think we need to toast him. And I'd like to ask two of the nephews to propose the toast, please, to Martin Gostelow, up there in the skies. Where are you? We want Josh, and we want Tarek, please.
Our Uncle Martin was a giant amongst men. At family events, he was easy to spot. In front of the camera and ready but then, ushered towards back, unfairly or not.
Preferring the pronouns fee, fi, fo, fum, so amazingly patient with the sisters so bossy. We loved him through bloodline passed down through our mom, and oh, how he dealt with the Cobbin posse.
Through the back of the tent. His smile, his stature, and of course his wit. No one else could have kept up with my Auntie Mary, for which he was active and kept very fit. The number of books he wrote is quite scary.
Of places he'd been to and provided a guide, so he could advise on where to poo-poo, to write them. He too traveled far and wide. Few countries he had missed or failed to review.
The brain of Britain once did succumb to the charms and energy of a young Mary. He was smitten and had found his lifelong chum, converting Cobham to Gostelow without being wary.
His spirit and kindness in Lahore did shell out for a set of brand new white teeth for an aspiring young manager of a hotel. Just shows us that there was no one he saw as beneath.
For years I resided in Milton Abbas, then on to Cliff House, rarely for more than a weekender, before off to Heathrow, turning left to first class. British Airways the choice for a life of splendour.
Of course, JM adored this wonderful man, admiring his mastery of all competitions, not least for keeping up with his eldest when no one else can. A hit with the family for his witty renditions.
So as we gather to show our respect to a wonderful man who we should take after, take a minute to sit, think and reflect. He had a life well lived, sharing love and much laughter. To Martin.
Martin! Thank you, music. Yeah, can we have the music? Thank you. Thank you, that was fantastic. I'm coming into the office where Martin sat for so long, sitting at that desk, doing paperwork, doing my accounts, doing his accounts, and writing. This is where he wrote so many of his books. And you know what? He's still here because Martin is in this tin showing the constellation that was one of his favourite planes. And as well as books, there are trophies from West Africa, 2 long-necked figurines, a part of the world that we used to go to, but there's so much of the world to travel. We were married at the school at which my father was headmaster, and it was a great occasion. We were married in the school chapel, and then we walked over to the house where we lived with a big garden. And the caterers had set up all the lunch outside, beautiful buffet. There was one problem. The bridegroom had gone missing. Where was he? Well, he was found in a distant corner behind a few big trees, sitting down by himself, having a jolly good lunch. Well, he said, I'm hungry. Our wedding. When Martin came back to me in this beautiful urn, and I like it so much I couldn't throw it away, I put him next to this little Russian doll that we've had for ages and ages and ages. Martin had so many happy memories in Russia. He was the first foreigner to drive into Russia in his own car ever. And he was co-author with me of driving in Eastern Europe and through into the old Soviet Union. And also car camping in Russia in the days when foreigners couldn't camp everywhere. You had to go to specific places. And if you didn't get there in time, they came after you. Our first Christmas, we were in Egypt with our friend John Nelson and his wife and another couple of friends. And one day we were riding on donkeys through the Valley of the Kings. Martin had tremendously long legs, and unfortunately he had a rather wonky donkey. That sounds good, wonky donkey. Anyway, the donkey kept on collapsing, and eventually Martin was walking, right? And the donkey was kind of trotting along between Martin's legs. Well, how did we meet? I was supposed to be going to work for the college to which our current King Charles III was going. Sounded very good, but I didn't like the people who were interviewing me. So instead I went to Marlborough College, and they seemed to think that I was the ideal person, so I got the job at Marlborough College, and that was a school with 880 boys and about 80 teachers, all boys and men, by the way. And I had to walk past where they were all having lunch, and for some reason one turned their head and all the others then turned their head, and I was wearing just like now, I was wearing a short pink miniskirt but with long white boots. So Martin first of all saw my legs, Not so good these days, of course. And I went through the car park and I saw all these awful old cars, but there was one great colourful car, and I fell in love with that car. And then we met at a cocktail party, and I think we talked about cars rather than legs, but that's how we first met.